Hello, uh, welcome to the lecture. Is everyone here? Hello, everyone here?
Hello.
Yes, we are.
Hello.
Okay. So, project cost control. So we are in the third topic, and then this is the last sub topic for the project cost control. Okay. So, before we talked about some other issues such as the financial management, equipment costs, and the buy lease and sell, buy lease and rent equipment, this problem. So now this is the last one, project cost control. Okay, so it involves the measurement and recording of project costs and progress and a comparison between actual and planned performance. So the meaning of cost control is that if while conducting the project, you will need to measure how much the cost is being spent. And then, of course, this measured cost will be recorded. And this recorded cost will be then compared with the planned performance. So we will have the planned performance curve, we have the actual performance curve in terms of the cost. So then we will see what is the difference. So if the difference is that we are spending more, then we will try to find the reason that why we are spending more, and then in that way we will try to control the cost on those items where there is more spending than what was needed. So in this way, the project cost control will be done. So the principal objective of the project cost control is to maximize profit while completing the project on time at a satisfactory level of quality. So here in this sentence, we are talking about the three aspects. Maximize the profit, that means at the desired level of the cost, okay, so, at which we can get some enough profit on time and at a satisfactory level of quality. So we are talking about the time cost quality triangle in this case, which is also called as the iron triangle of the project. Proper cost control procedures will also result in the accumulation of historical data, which are invaluable in estimating and controlling future project costs. So this is another, this is a side advantage of this project cost control, that because if we, for the project cost control, we need to collect and record the data, and that data may be useful for our future projects, okay? The use of CPM procedures greatly simplifies this process. So the easiest or the most systematic way for project cost control is the use of the critical path method. We can tie up the schedule of the project with the costs. So schedule is the only blueprint which we can use for the management of the certain management of all activities on the project. So critical path method should be used. A cost code system is usually combined with activity numbering. You yield a complete system of project cost accounts. So one of the way for connecting the schedule and the cost is to use the activity numbering, and then those activity numberings are then combined with the cost accounts. Okay, so for example, activity number 1, 2, 3 is associated with the cost account number 235. So cost account will be based on the material cost, labor cost, equipment cost, etc. So we can combine these two types of numbering systems, activity numbering system and the cost accounting system. So then this will result in an integrated picture of the schedule and the cost. The coding system permit charging all labor, material, equipment, and subcontract costs to the appropriate work item. So it is important to correctly identify the type of costs. So which cost has been spent on which activity? If we can do it accurately, then we are in a good position to control the cost. If we cannot do it, then that means if, for example, if there is a high labor cost in the project, but we really don't know where that labor cost was spent in the project, whether it is on the excavation activity or whether it was in the clearing activity or whether it was on the other activities such as the site preparation, etc. So exactly the type of location or the activity have to be identified for different types of costs. Indirect and overhead costs for the project are usually assigned a separate cost code. So when remember that when we are talking about the assigning the costs into the schedule, we are talking about the direct costs, that is the direct cost for the labor, material, and equipment. The indirect costs, that means which are not specific to certain activities in the project, which are like on the overall basis for the project. These costs are usually assigned separate cost code because they are separate in nature than the direct costs. Labor costs may be easily computed if time sheets are coded to identify the activity on which the time is expended. So this is one of the very direct approach. If we want to identify where the labor cost was spent, so we must identify it with the help of the time sheets, which should also show the activity numbers, activity numbers which will identify the activity on which the cost was spent. And the same approach can be done for the plant and equipment costs. Okay, so if the record is kept of time spent on each activity by each machine. On the other hand, labor, equipment, and on the other hand, if you have materials are material costs are controlled in slightly different manner. The cost of the material used may be based on priced delivery invoices coded to the appropriate activity. So material costs are normally, we don't measure in the project. Material costs are directly available from the invoices, okay, which we received from the supplier. So it is easier in that sense about the material cost compared with the labor cost and the equipment cost. The fourth type of cost which is controlled is the subcontract cost. But there is a difference in the subcontract cost is that because since the subcontract and associated service work may not be billed at the same interval at which the costs are recorded. It may be necessary to apportion such costs to the appropriate activity at each costing interval. The meaning is that normally the subcontractors or the service providers will bill you for their cost a little bit later than when the activity has already been performed. So in this case, these costs will come into the picture at a little bit later manner. And then in those situations, we may not be assigning appropriate costs to those activities which have already been done. So therefore, there should be some system, there should be some effort that those costs may be anticipated. And at the time of recording those activities, such as if we are recording the activities for the labor and for the direct labor and the equipment cost, at the same time, some estimated cost for the subcontractor or the services work can be also included into that activity. So therefore, so that their recording of the costs for those activities is on a timely manner. Okay, to permit a complete comparison of the project progress versus cost, it is necessary that progress reporting intervals coincide with the cost reporting interval. Yes, so this is also a good suggestion, because on a project you have the you set the intervals for the progress reporting. So the progress reporting is in terms of the how much activity has been completed, how much work has on certain activities has been completed. So maybe on weekly basis, on bi-weekly basis or monthly basis, such reports are prepared. So on at the same in the parallel to that, the cost reporting interval should also be kept the same. Or in a more ideal situation, the cost reporting should be integrated into the progress reporting. So then it will be an ideal situation. The interval between the reports will depend on the nature and importance of the work. So for smaller projects, the interval will be usually smaller. For larger scale projects, the interval may also be set at a longer period, such as on monthly basis. But of course, if some milestone is approaching if some milestone is approaching and that milestone in the project have to be achieved on time, then maybe that progress reporting period may be lowered as well, maybe on weekly basis or maybe less than weekly basis. So, but in most of the cases, monthly intervals are commonly used as the basis for requesting the progress payments. So that means whatever the work has been done, normally that work is normally paid on the monthly intervals. However, construction management may desire weekly or even daily cost and performance reports for the control of the critical construction projects. So if there are some critical elements in the work, then the progress period may be reduced to even week or daily basis. A number of systems have been developed for relating project cost and progress and for forecasting time and cost to project completion. One of that system is called as the PERT over cost report for a project. In that system, project progress and cost to date are graphed together with the value of the work completed to date and projections of the final completion and time. So this system has been shown in this chart, and this is the last slide of this topic. So as you can see that in this system, on the horizontal axis is the time, okay? On the vertical axis is the cost spent. So suppose if we have a very large scale project which takes place several years, of course, it is not necessary. We can create this kind of curve for every type of situation. So we can draw these curves. So for example, there will be a curve for the planned cost. Okay, so the planned cost will be for a period of, for the whole period of the project. And say, in this case, after 1, 2, and about 2.5 years, you take the progress of the project, you find that the value of the work performed is this much, okay? But the planned value of the work should have been performed should be higher in this case. So it means that we are behind the schedule, okay? We are behind the schedule. That means there is a it was expected that the amount it was expected that there is a difference of about $200,000. So if we read the values on the scale, so here more work needs to be done, but actual work done was this much amount. On the other hand, the actual spend amount which was spent is this much, somewhere in between the value of the work which was performed, the actual work, the actual spending is somewhere in between. So it means that we are not only performing the less amount of work, but also spending more on that amount. Okay? So this is the actual dollar curve. So if these if this actual dollar curve is extrapolated, okay, then we find that there will be a total overrun of about $500,000 in this project. And then there will be accordingly a scheduled slippage as well. This project will take 8.6 more weeks to complete. So based on these curves, okay, we can provide some regression equations to these curves. And based on those regression equations, we can extrapolate these curves, such as in this case, which is shown in the dashed line. And using this dashed line, we can extrapolate. That means we can foresee or forecast that in future, when the project is going to finish, will it finish on time, or will it also, we need to spend some more amount. So of course, using this type of system, if we can forecast this project situation, then we have now the time to correct those conditions, and so that we can complete the project on time and within budget. Okay, so this was about the project control, the cost control, project cost control. Okay, so I think then with this, this topic is completed. So if you have any question about this, I have put some practice problems for this topic over here. This is 30 August. This is the, where are the practice problems? Oh, this is for the lecture. Yeah, so topic 3, practice problems. Okay, so some of those problems I have already provided over here. So their solution is also here. So you should have a look at those practice problems. Okay, so that will be, I think, something related to your next assignment. But for your current assignment, we have the topic 2, practice problems. Can you see it? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look, if you see the topic 2, practice problems, so these practice problems will help you solve your assignment. Okay. So I hope that maybe by this time you have also attempted this assignment. Okay. Did you try to attempt the assignments?
Yes.
Not yet, just looked at it.
Yeah.
I have a question,
Okay,
actually. May I ask something?
Yes, I'm always welcoming the questions. Yes.
This FF value, for example, in this table here, the free float,
Yes.
we were using is actually something like the early start of the next activity minus the early finish of the current activity. Is this formula correct, or do you have another one?
For the finish, for the FF, FF is the free float. I did not talk about the free float, but I leave because I think in this assignment I have included some of the things I think for which you need to do some extra research to find the answer. So free float is one of them, but I can tell you how you can find the free float. There is no formula for free float. Okay. Free float. If you want to calculate the free float, what you have to do is, let me draw it over here. Okay. So suppose if you have an activity, so FF is free float, or sometime in some other software or books, it is also called as the free slack. Okay, FS. Okay, so free float is something like this. Okay, if you have this activity, if you have these two activities, so for example, this is activity A, this is activity B. This activity takes 10 days. This activity takes.
Professor, I guess we don't see what you.
We can't see
write.
anything.
We just
Oh, you can't see it?
white, just white table or what?
How about now?
Oh, now we can see.
Now you can see. Oh, okay. So what I have just explained on this whiteboard was that free float, FF, is called as free float. It is the same as the free slacks in some other books or software. It is called as the slack. Okay, so it's the same. So suppose if we have two activities and then there is a third activity over here, C. Okay, so C is preceded by A and C is also preceded by B. So there is a finish to start relationship. So suppose activity A is, we can schedule from here is 10, and then its early start will be 10, its early finish will be, sorry, early start will be 0, early finish will be 10. And for B, early start will be 0, early finish will be 15. Okay, in this case. So what will be the, for C, I think if you take like 5 days, so for what will be the early start of C?
15.
15.
Yeah, it will be 15 because it will be the later of those two. Okay, and it will be 20. Okay. And suppose if we have just like only this, so then if you can go to the backward pass, so it will be 20, 20 minus 5, it will be 15, and then here it will be 15, and then 0, and then it will be how much?
0.
No, it will be 15 for the backward pass. It will be 15.
Ah, yes.
For the late 15 minutes, it will be 5. So suppose if you have this one. So if we want to find the total float for each activity, so the total float of, so we can say that A, B, C, and then we can have the total float, and then we have the free float. Okay, first we find the total float, then we'll come to free float. So what will be the total float of A?
5.
5. So for this, there is a formula, 15 minus 10 or 5 minus 0. Okay. So 15 minus 10, it will be 5. Okay. And then for B, it will be 0. And then for C, it will be also 0. Okay. So what will be the free float? Okay. For free float, okay, we have this definition. So free float, it is a time and activity can be delayed without delaying any succeeding activity. Okay, remember that we are talking about the succeeding activity, whereas the total float is the time an activity can be delayed without delaying the whole project. Okay, so for the total float, this word succeeding replaces the whole project. Okay. So this is the definition. So in this case, if we want to find the free float of these activities, so if we see for this activity A, can you see that if we delay this activity A by say 1 day, so for example, instead of 0, we start it at 1, will it delay its succeeding activity? The succeeding activity of A is C in this case. Okay. Immediately, okay, here we can see that any immediately succeeding activity, immediately. So just to clarify more, okay, immediately succeeding. So that immediately succeeding activities, see, there can be more activities if there is a larger project, but we are only talking about the immediately succeeding activity. So the immediately succeeding activity for A is C. Will it delay C if I start instead of 0, I start it at 1? Will it delay C?
No.
No, because for example, if we start at 1, it is going to finish at 11, but we can see that C cannot start earlier than 15. Okay, cannot start earlier than 15. So it means that if it is, even if it is finished at 11, C will only start at 15, right? But instead, if for example, if I start it at 6, okay, at 6, so 6 plus 10 is 16. So A will finish at 16. So since A will finish at 16, but C cannot start earlier than 15. So therefore, it will also affect these C. Okay. So in this case, then we can see that A has a free float of the difference between this number and this number. Okay. So therefore, in fact, there is a right formula. There is a formula is also as well. Formula as well. So maybe we can define this formula in a qualitative manner. So free float of activity I. Okay, free float of any. If I say that if free float of activity I is equal to the early start time of immediately succeeding activity. Minus early finish of activity I. So this is the formula. Okay. So free float of activity I. So free float of activity I is I in this case is A, is the early start time of activity, immediately succeeding activity minus the early finish time. So 15 minus 10, that means in this case it is equal to 5. So it will be 5. How about for B? So what will be the free float? By this approach, the free float of activity B will be what?
0.
0.
0, because you have this 15 here, we have this 15 here, 15 minus 15 is 0. But in any case, if you don't have to verify it, if you know that its total float is 0, if total float is 0, free float will be always 0. Okay, free float will be always 0 because the free float is a component of the total float. Okay, so
Sorry, Professor. Why is the free
Yes.
float for A is 0? So isn't it 5? I mean,
yeah, it's 5. Yes, it is 5. Yeah, I just mistyped it. It's fine. Yeah, actually I calculated as 5, but I written as 0. Yeah, is it clear?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so in this way, then you can calculate the free float. So what is the date of midterm exam? So someone has asked me this question. I don't know what is the date, but it will be somewhere in the 7th week. Okay, maybe I will try to fix it and then I will announce it. Okay, so this is the these are the practice problems. So therefore, the practice problems are similar to the assignment, and you should be able to do those assignments. Okay. Okay. So any other question?
May I ask you a question about midterm?
Yes.
So to be prepared to midterm, we have to be prepared for all lecture materials which were presented before midterm, yes?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So in the midterm exam, we will have both numerical and the descriptive both questions.
So we'll either write questions, I mean open questions, theoretical part, and also solve problems by numbers, yes, with numbers.
Yes, it is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with that, then I think we can start our next topic. I have already uploaded its PDF. So this topic is about the contract construction. So in this topic, we will be talking about the mainly about the bidding process, the construction contracts. Okay, and the type of the contract. So in this case, first of all, we will talk about the construction process and the construction contract law in the introduction. So this topic is different from the previous two topics, as in this topic we don't have any numerical problems, but I think the description of this topic is very interesting and very straightforward. So in the construction process, construction by a general contractor employed under a prime construction contract is only one of these methods. So that means if we have a general contractor, so for example, this is this type of process. So for example, if you have an owner, and owner has the contract with the prime contractor, and the owner maybe have another contract with the architect or engineer. Okay, so this is most general type of construction contractual arrangement. So most of our discussion will be in this topic will revolve around this type of arrangement. But of course, it is just only one of these methods. The other methods we have, I think, somehow briefly looked at in our first topic. So this method of obtaining construction services is widely used. That means this is quite common to have this method. It will form the basis of this topic's discussion of contract construction. So these are the main subtopics in this chapter, including the bidding and contractual contract award. So we will also look at the bidding process, the type of the construction contract, plans and the specifications, and the contract administration. Okay, so these are the main subtopics in this chapter. So first look at the construction contract law. I think basically we will be just very briefly discussing about this. Actually, it's a topic of a full course, that what is the construction law. Okay, so the construction professionals are usually not the lawyers. However, because the law is for the lawyers, okay, but construction professionals are not usually the lawyers. However, in the construction contracts, there are several terms which are frequently used from the daily basis. So therefore, construction professionals are expected to be knowing those terms and those law procedures. So although they are not the lawyers. So construction professionals must have a thorough understanding of the customary practices and underlying principles involving the contract construction. So virtually every action taken by a contractor, construction manager, or architect or engineer at the construction site has legal implications. So when to submit the drawings, when to submit the progress report, whether to seek any opinion of the architect about performing some work according to the construction drawings, etc. So each of these actions in the construction project have their legal implications, because the construction project involves thousands or several thousands or several maybe millions, or for the mega projects, billions of dollars of the amount involved. So these are significant amounts, or significant time and effort is also spent on the construction projects. So therefore, many of the actions which are performed have their legal implications as well. Some of these, so therefore it is very important to understand their legal meaning by the construction professionals. So here in this chapter, I think some of these things will be also touched upon. Of course, it will not be in a very detailed manner. There is simply no time to consult. There's simply no time to consult a lawyer. Every time a decision must be made. So therefore, in the construction process, most of the time there is not enough time. So for routine matters in which some legal implications is required, so the construction professional can use their own knowledge of the construction contracts to take those decisions. So thus the construction professionals must understand the contractual consequences of their activities and be able to recognize when legal advice should be secured. But this does not mean that the legal advice from the professionals is not required. For very important matters, for example, for some matters, for example, if the things go beyond the control of the project professionals, maybe for the disputes, for the claims, for the important changes in the construction project. So the legal advice is also needed. So therefore, for large projects or even for medium scale projects, construction lawyers are also part of the project team. Okay, either these lawyers may be from any team, from any side, from the contractor, from the owner, or even from the architect's side. So the lawyers are also sometimes part of the legal team. So therefore, their legal advice should be also secured. Okay. So with this, now let's look at the bidding and contractual procedures. So bidding and contract award. So bidding, what is a bidding? Okay, so bidding means that it means bidding is actually your application to apply application to get the construction project. If you are a construction professional in the form of maybe a contractor, if you have your company, So from your company, you will apply for that project. So that process is called as the bidding process. In some other countries, maybe in the countries which follow the UK system, they call this process as the tendering process. So there is another term which is called as tendering, but the bidding is more like a American term, or it is used most frequently over here. So bidding and contract award. So how the bid is prepared, what are the bidding procedures, and how the contract is awarded, that we are going to discuss over here. And then with that, there will be a short discussion about the subcontracts. Okay, so first let's look at the bid preparation. So construction contracting is a highly competitive business. So for a construction project, there may be several construction companies who may like to take that construction project. So for example, if the government wants to build a highway, okay, connecting two cities. So for building of that highway, for constructing that highway, and the government will ask, will advertise its intention that they want the qualified contractors to bid for that construction project. So there may be several people. So say there will be several companies who want that project. So it is a competitive business. So on the other hand, profit is an obvious and principal motive for bidding on a construction contract. So when there are several businesses, and on the other hand, there is a profit as well, so then normally the project will be assigned to that company whose bid will be the lowest. So it means that if you want to be successful in getting the project, okay, your bid should be also low. And your bid should be also, if your bid is also low, then that means that it will be very hard to get the profit as well. So therefore, you should plan the bidding process in a very correct manner, okay, in correct manner, so that your estimates are correct, and then your profit estimates are also correct, and this will also not increase your bidding price excessively high as well. So therefore, you have to consider both aspects: the competitive nature of the project and the desired profit in the project. Just in case if you are if you as a contractor gets the project. Then of course there are some other reasons to bid on a project as well. Sometimes the profit is not the only situation. During the times of low construction activity, contractors may submit bids with little or no profit margin in order to keep their equipment in operation and prevent the loss of skilled workers and managers. So, however, it should not be long continued. So, well, of course, these are some of the exceptional circumstances. In most of the cases, of course, every company would like to get the profit. But in some situations, when there is not much construction activity in the, and then there are not many opportunities which are available, in those situations, the contractors may bid even at a very low profit margin, or to keep their equipment in operation. Because if they will not keep their equipment in operation, then of course they may be paying for their storage fees, their maintenance fee unnecessarily. So just to cover their costs, they may be even doing the project in those situations. However, this cannot be done for a very long period of time. This may be a temporary situation. Of course, for longer period of time, every construction company may have some project which may provide them some enough profits. Another reason to bid is a desire for prestige and the maintenance of goodwill with the regular clients. So this may be also a reason for a very experienced construction company, which may be there in the business, maybe 10 years, 20 years, etc. They sometimes do the project for their clients to maintain a good relationship with those clients. They may see that, okay, maybe from now for this project, maybe we cannot cover enough profits, but for the future projects, we may have chance from the same client that we can get some good projects which may provide them enough profit as well. And on the other hand, there are some projects which are for the prestige as well. So for example, there are some projects of national importance. For example, taking part in the Olympic Village or Olympic Stadium. So those projects which may provide them prestige and recognition. Sometimes the contractors will also take part in those kinds of projects. Although in those situations may be profits, there may not be enough profit as well. So prestige, goodwill, these are also other reasons. And keeping the equipment in operation may also be one of the reasons to bid for the projects. So the projects that receive wide publicity because of their national importance or their unusual nature are often bid at low profit margins. So therefore, mainly these projects, if they are bid for a low profit margins, they are projects of prestige, okay? Projects which can get them some recognition overall. And that recognition and prestige may be helpful for their future projects as well. So these are some of the reasons for which why the projects bid for the why the contractors bid for the project. So in these cases, the loss of potential profit can be justified by the public recognition gained. So again, we are talking about the prestige projects. Although there may be a loss of potential profit, but we can get the public recognition. Likewise, contractors sometimes bid on relatively undesirable project in order to maintain a relationship with an owner. So again, of course, for maintaining a goodwill relationship, sometimes the contractors may even bid on the relatively undesirable projects as well. A contractor who has decided to bid on a project must prepare a detailed cost estimate for the execution. So therefore, this is necessary. Of course, it is not just like the contractor is asking you to bid for the construction of this road from one city to another city. That contractor must evaluate these costs involved, must estimate the costs in a detailed manner. And then, of course, the contractor should quote the price, okay? So for the execution of the project. However, this topic is very broad. Of course, there are not only these considerations, there are, of course, many considerations as well. The first step in the preparation of a cost estimate is to take off the quantities of materials required by the plans and specifications. Okay, so here you can see that this is a very important sentence. Here we can see that required by the plans and specifications, which means that we must have some in the normal situations. Okay, we are talking about this normal situation, that is when we have an owner. Okay, when we have a client who has already asked the architect or the engineer to create the full design of the project or an appreciable design of the project, and then that design of the project in the form of the plans and specifications is given to the potential applicants for the project, who are the contractors. So those contractors will read those plans and specifications. Using those plans and the specifications, the contractors will extract the quantities of the work needed. So this is called as the taking of the quantities of the materials, okay, from the project. Not only the taking of the quantities of the materials, taking of the, of course, if you have the plans and specifications for a building project, for example, so by reading those drawings, we can know how much quantity of the concrete will be needed, how much quantity of the steel will be needed, and related to that, how much amount of labor that may be estimated to construct that building, what type of equipment will be needed. So all these are estimated, and this type of estimate depends on the taking of the quantities. Okay, taking of the quantities of the materials by the plans and the specifications. Okay, so these quantities are then extended to provide a total estimated material cost for the project. That means extended. There is this term extension of the plans and the extensions of the taking of the quantities. So extended. Okay, so extended is one term, and taking of the quantity. So taking of the quantity means how much we need. Extended means they are multiplied by the unit costs. Okay, so for example, if we say see that for a certain portion of the construction project in a building, we need 100 cubic meter of concrete. Okay, for the 100 cubic meter of the concrete. So if we have the concrete supplier as our subcontractor, that concrete supplier will say that, okay, I will provide you this concrete at $1,000 per cubic meter. Okay? So 100 multiplied by $1,000 per square per 100 cubic meter multiplied by $1,000 per cubic meter of concrete. Then that process will be called as the extended. Okay, extending the quantities. So this is a construction estimating term which we are using over here. So this will be the total estimated material cost for the project. Okay. Similar estimates are made for the labor, equipment, and subcontract costs. Okay. So remember that you are doing the capstone project. So at some point in time, you will have to do these kind of processes. But of course, you can also use some software or such as you can use this RS Means Online. Okay, RS Means Online. So now I'm telling you, everyone. So you can use this RS Means Online. So you can this type of software or this system provides you the necessary data for your building project. So you may use it. Okay. Of course, so you can find more information on the internet about this. The costs of equipment, labor, and material are often referred to as direct costs. Okay, so whatever is the cost of the labor, that means the labor who is directly working on the job. So, for example, mason, okay, bar bending labor, carpenter, okay, and other laborers who are directly working on the project. So their costs and the materials cost and the equipment cost, whether it is a rental equipment or it is a purchased equipment, their owning and operating costs, these costs are referred to as the direct costs. Okay. So when we are preparing the bid preparation, so we need different types of costs. We have to identify the direct costs first. So these direct costs are identified first. Then we make the estimates for the administrative and the management expenses that will be incurred at the project site. So all the management, the site foreman, site supervisor, site superintendent, site engineers, the project managers, the other staff working on the project site office, the electricity or the utility expenses at the site office. All these are the indirect costs. So we need to also add those indirect costs as well. Okay. So these costs are often referred to as the job overhead or the indirect costs. Okay. So the main difference between the direct costs and the indirect costs are those costs is that the indirect costs are those costs which are not specifically connected to certain activities, whereas the direct costs are specifically connected to those to certain activities. So, for example, a labor working on the concreting, a labor working on the form work, and equipment used for the concreting and equipment used for the form work. So, these are the costs which are directly related with certain project activities, whereas the indirect costs are not related with the certain project activities. So, for example, a site engineer is not only just responsible for the concreting work, a site engineer may be also responsible for the excavation work. A site engineer may also be responsible for the superstructure work or other different types of work. So site engineer may be responsible for overall on the project, not for just certain activities. So therefore, these we can make we will differentiate between these types of costs. So those activities which will be related with some certain activities, we will call them as the direct cost, and those who are related overall on the project, they will be called as the job overhead or the indirect costs. So we need to distinguish or identify these costs in the bidding process. Add an additional amount for the general overhead and profit. So in addition to those direct costs and the indirect costs, we have to further add the general overhead and the profit. And where these general overhead and the profits come from? Remember that the construction projects are normally taking place off-site, not at the head office. Okay, so construction company will have their head office. That head office will be managing several projects, maybe depending on the size and the number of business the construction company has. That construction company may be handling or managing several projects. On the other hand, there will be a project. There will be one project. There will be another project. So if we are talking about just one project, so that one project will be handled by the head office, and which is handling several projects as well. So some portion of the head office expenses, okay, expenses at the head office will be also apportioned to the project. So general overhead must cover the cost of all company activities not directly associated with the individual construction project. So for example, the advertisement and like that. So major items of the general overhead include the salaries of the headquarter personnel, company officials, estimators, clerks, accountants, etc. Of course, there are some of these, for example, estimators, clerks, and accountants may even be working on the project as well. But those estimators, clerks, and accountants, their costs will be included in the project overheads, not in the general overheads. But those estimators, accountants who are working at the head office, their costs will be included in the general overheads as well. Rent and utilities for the head office or other things, advertising, insurance, office supplies, and interest on the borrowed capital. So all of these are the general overhead expenses. So then if we have several projects, so then depending on the overall value of the project, so these general overhead expenses are then apportioned on a pro rata basis. So the usual procedure for prorating the general overhead expenses to projects is to estimate the total annual overhead expenses, divide by the expected dollar amount of the construction work for the year, and then multiply by the project's bid price. So in this way, you can prorate the cost of the project. So for example, if the total overhead general overhead if the total general overhead expenses of the projects is say $1 million, okay, $1 million. So that $1 million may be then divided by the total of all the projects. Okay. Total value of all the projects, say maybe a $10 million. So 1 million divided by 10 million. So that means 0.1. So that 0.1 will be then multiplied by the project's bid price. So for example, if this project is for $200,000, so 0.1 multiplied by $200,000. So it means this will be 200 times 200,000 multiplied by 0.1, that is $20,000. Okay, so $20,000 out of that 1 million may be assigned to that project. So anyway, it is not a difficult mathematics, just the common sense that whatever is the value of the project, the general overhead expenses may be assigned on a pro rata basis. Okay. Okay, next is the amount to be added for the profit is a management decision. So of course we talked about the general overhead expenses, general administrative overheads. In addition, of course, up to now we have only talked about the expenses. The profit should not be forgotten, but what amount of profit should be added, this is generally a management decision. Okay, so whether the management add like 5% profit, 10% profit, 7.5% profit, it is the management's decision. So some projects may be bid with very low profit margins, as we explained before. In the long run, the construction operations must yield a reasonable return on the invested capital. But of course, not every time you can bid for a very low profit margin. In the long run, the construction operations must yield a reasonable return on the invested capital. Okay. Unless the return on the capital is greater than the yield of the standard commercial investment, the owner would be better off investing in such items than in operating a construction business. So this is also, this line tells you a very important principle of the economics, okay? This is the opportunity cost principle. For example, if you are not getting enough return from your construction business, then otherwise, if you can get for investing in some low risk investments such as saving accounts or other maybe the government bonds, etc., you must not invest in the construction business in those situations. So you should be very much sure that in the construction business, although it may be risky to invest, but considering all those risks, if you are confident that you can get enough profit in the long run, which will be more than your usual no risk investment, which will be more than your opportunity cost, only then you should invest in the construction business. So these four lines actually point towards a very important principle for the opportunity cost in the economics. Okay. The bidding strategy or the selection of a specific bid price for a fixed price construction contract is a mixture of art and science. Well, once you have done this cost estimating using the direct costs, project overhead costs, general and administrative overhead costs, and also adding the profits, you have the bidding price. However, on top of that, there may be a bidding strategy or the selection of a specific bid price for a fixed price construction contract is a mixture of art and science. Okay. So for example, there are various methods used, which range from the statistical analysis and application of game theory, personal experience, judgment-based decisions, which are of course beyond the scope of this topic to discuss over here. The bid price actually submitted by a contractor is usually based on an analysis of the expected competition and the state of the construction market, in addition to the contractor's estimate of the cost to execute the project. So now that, of course, you have estimated your price. So that estimated price, depending on various circumstances, may or may not be very attractive to bid for. So for example, if you see that if you are bidding for a certain project, and then you will see that there are many competitors on those projects. And though some of the other competitors from your past experience or from your internal intelligence of your competitors, you know that they may always be able to beat your price. Okay, that means whatever the price you will bid. So, for example, for a road construction project, you may be bidding for about a 50-kilometer long road. You may be bidding for like $50 million. Okay, I'm just saying any number. Okay, so your bidding price is $50 million. But later on, you find that some other competitors are also there. And from your past experience, you say that in the past, their prices were usually very low. And it may be very difficult for us to win this project. So these type of situations may help to be also thought about. So that's why it is said that it is to win the bid or to win the tender from an owner is generally a mixture of art and science. So not only just your science science should work well, but your relationships or how you present your bid price also should be used. Okay. Next is the, so this was about the bid preparation. Next is the bidding procedure. So this is how you prepare the bid, okay? So then let's look at what is the procedure for the bid. So bidding, the principal step in the bidding procedure for a fixed price construction contract include solicitation, bid preparation, bid submission, bid opening, selection of the lowest qualified bidder, and the contract award. So remember that selection of the lowest qualified bidder is generally the criteria, especially in the public sector or the government sector projects. But in the private sector projects, this may or may not be the criteria, because the private sector is free to choose any bidder. But in the government sector, since the public fund is involved, it is generally the practice that the lowest qualified bidder is selected. So what does this mean? Solicitation means solicitation. The meaning of solicitation is that it may range from an invitation sent to a selected few contractors to public advertisements. So solicitation is simply saying that it is the invitation for the bidding. That means if the government wants to start a project, the government will invite the bidders. Okay, so that process in the overall process is called as the solicitation. To ensure the adequate competition, at least 3 bids should be obtained. So this is just a thumb rule that at least there should be 3 bids, but maybe in some projects there where the interest is not too much, or there may not be enough number of qualified bidders. You may even have 1 bidder or may have 2 bidders as well. But for most situations, there should at least be 3 bidders, okay, who should be applying for the project. The contractors indicating an interest in bidding should be supplied with at least 1 complete set of contract documents. Okay, so now this sentence is applicable in the most general situations when the design of the project is already completed. Okay, so this only happens in the design build type of projects. Of course, in the design build projects, the complete set of contract documents is not completed. So in the design build, then you not only ask for the design, but also for the construction for the project as well. So this type of sentence is only applicable for the design build projects, okay, which we are talking as the general category of the projects in this topic. A deposit may be required to ensure the return of project plans and specifications furnished to the unsuccessful bidder. So generally, because the plans and specifications for certain projects are huge, maybe thousands of pages, sheets of thousands of sheets of drawings and specifications may need to be prepared for the bidding process. So since those documents may cost quite a lot, so therefore sometimes the client or the owner may be issuing these documents at a cost to the bidders. Okay, so they may take a deposit from the unsuccessful bidder. So the deposit may be required to ensure the return of the project plans and specifications furnished to the unsuccessful bidder. So that if the bidders are unsuccessful, they can return those plans and specifications in proper form to them. But of course, if nowadays, if these plans and specifications are prepared in the digital format, maybe this step is not very significant these days. If so in those situations, those prepared the electronic format drawings and specifications may be provided to the unsuccessful bidders at some cost. Still may be at some cost or deposit as well, but that cost or deposit may be much lower than in the case of when we are supplying the plans and specifications to these to the bidders in the paper format. The time allowed to bid for bid preparation should be based on the size and complexity of the project. So, and generally, some time is allowed depending on the size of the project. But for most construction projects, 3 weeks is normally suggested as a reasonable time to prepare the bids for the project. Okay, so I think we have run out of the time. So I may stop at this slide number 13. Okay, so we will try to finish this topic in our next lecture. Do you have any questions?
No.